Once upon a time, there was a wealthy man named Zulu. His name was like a bell that rang across towns, villages, and even cities. People spoke of him with admiration and fear. He was not only rich but powerful. Chiefs, elders, and politicians all respected him. To the poor, he was a symbol of success. To his enemies, he was untouchable. Zulu's mansion stood tall on top of a mighty hill. It was so big that from far away, it looked like a palace meant for kings. Around the hill flowed rivers that glittered under the sun like silver. Birds sang in the trees, and the air was always fresh. Outsiders who passed by would stop just to admire the beauty of Zulu's home. They believed he had everything a man could ever want: money, power, and even a beautiful wife named Olana. But the truth is, riches do not buy happiness. One fateful day, Olana gave birth to their first child, a son. The whole mansion was filled with excitement. Zulu's servants prepared drums to celebrate. The cooks roasted goats and chickens, expecting a grand feast. Everyone waited for Zulu to announce the good news. But when Zulu entered the room and saw the baby, his heart froze like ice. His breath caught in his throat. His eyes widened in disbelief. The child, his only son, had the head of a cow. Zulu trembled as if thunder had struck him. He stepped back, almost falling. His lips shook as he whispered, "No, this cannot be. My only son. A child with the head of an animal. How can this be possible?" Fear gripped his chest. Shame covered him like a heavy cloth. What would people say? The mighty Zulu, father of a beast? The same man who stood proud before chiefs and kings, now cursed with such a son. Olana wept bitterly. She held the baby close, her tears wetting the child's strange face. "My husband, please," she begged. "Do not expose me. Do not expose this child. If people hear of this, they will mock us. They will call me a witch. They will say you are cursed. Let us keep it a secret." Zulu looked at his wife. He saw pain in her eyes, pain that tore his own heart. His mind was filled with confusion, anger, and regret. He wanted to shout. He wanted to throw the child away. But something stopped him. A tiny voice whispered in his heart, "This is your blood. This is still your son." After a long silence, Zulu finally nodded. "So be it. No one must know. This child must remain hidden." From that day, the child was kept inside the mansion, like a shadow that the sun could never touch. Even the security guards never saw him. Servants were not allowed to enter certain rooms. Whenever visitors came, Olana would lock the child away. The boy grew up in silence. He could not play outside. He could not run by the rivers or chase after birds like other children. His world was walls, windows, and whispers. He became like a ghost inside his father's mansion, alive, yet hidden from the world. But deep inside, Zulu was not at peace. Every night, he sat in his wide bed, staring at the ceiling. He thought of the son he had, and shame filled his soul. The rivers outside continued to shine, but his heart grew darker each day. Many years passed, and the boy with the cow's head continued to grow. What began as a fragile child soon became a strong young man. His shoulders grew broad, his arms became firm, and his voice deepened like thunder. But his head remained the same, half human, half cow. Each time Zulu looked at him, his heart sank into sorrow. His chest tightened as though a heavy stone pressed on it. He would sit alone, staring into the distance, asking himself bitter questions. Why did the gods punish me in this way? Why must my only heir, the one who should carry my name and wealth, look like this? How can a man like me, known everywhere for greatness, father such a son? When visitors came to the mansion, Zulu forced smiles, pretending everything was well. But in his heart, he was broken. His riches no longer gave him joy. His mighty house on the hill felt more like a prison. The rivers around him glittered in the sun, yet his soul was filled with darkness. He hid his son like a forbidden secret. The young man never stepped outside the gate. He never walked the streets. He never joined the laughter of other youths. He never felt the warmth of friendship. His life was limited to the four corners of the mansion. His laughter, when it came, was locked within the walls. His cries at night echoed in empty hallways. Even his footsteps on the marble floors sounded lonely. To the world outside, it was as if he did not exist. Olana, his mother, tried to comfort Zulu whenever she saw his heavy face. She would sit close to him and speak softly. "My husband, he is still our son. Blood of your blood. Flesh of your flesh. His head may be strange, but his heart is pure." Sometimes, the boy himself would stretch out his hands to Zulu, longing for a father's embrace. But Zulu's eyes often turned away. He found it hard to look at him without feeling shame. Though Zulu never said it out loud, his son's presence was like a constant wound in his spirit. It was a reminder of something he could not explain, something that brought fear and mystery into his home. At night, when the house was quiet, Zulu would walk through the mansion, his footsteps heavy. He would pause by the locked room where his son stayed. He would hear the boy humming to himself or sometimes weeping. Zulu's heart would ache deeply, but he could not bring himself to open the door. The mighty man, respected everywhere, was powerless in his own home. One day, Zulu decided to repair the roofing sheets of his mansion. The rainy season was approaching, and he did not want water to leak into his palace-like home. He invited a famous carpenter named Bongani, a skilled man whose name was respected in many communities. Bongani was known for building strong roofs that could last for years. He did not come alone. With him was his only son, Jabulani, a young man full of strength and energy, eager to learn the trade from his father. Together, they climbed up the tall mansion and began their work. The sound of hammers echoed across the hill, and the sun shone brightly above them. From the roof, they could see the glittering rivers and the vast land surrounding Zulu's estate. But then, something unusual caught their eyes. Inside the mansion, through one of the large windows, they saw a strange figure moving. At first, they thought their eyes were deceiving them. But when the figure stepped closer, the truth struck them like lightning. It was a man, yet not a man. His body was human, tall and strong. But his head was that of a cow. Bongani's mouth opened in shock. Jabulani's hands froze in the air, the hammer slipping from his grip. Father and son stared at each other, their hearts beating fast. Sweat poured down their faces, not from the sun, but from fear. What is this?" Jabulani whispered with trembling lips. "Silence." Bongani hissed, his voice shaking. "Do not speak. Do not look again." Quickly, they bent their heads and continued hammering, pretending as if nothing had happened. But their hands shook with every strike. Their eyes could not stop glancing at the window. Inside the house, the strange figure moved back into the shadows. Unbeknownst to them, Zulu was watching. He had sharp eyes and noticed the change in their faces, the stiffness of their hands. He knew at once what had happened. "They have seen my secret." When the work was finished, Bongani and Jabulani came down from the roof, hoping to collect their pay and leave quickly. But Zulu's face was dark like a stormy sky. His eyes were cold, and his voice carried no mercy. "You and your son will never go back home again," he declared. Bongani blinked in confusion. "My lord, what do you mean?" Zulu's voice grew harsher. "You have seen what you should never see. From today, you belong to this mansion. If you dare refuse, I will order my guards to cut you down where you stand." Bongani and Jabulani fell on their knees, trembling. Tears ran down their cheeks as they cried out in desperation. "Please, master. We beg you. Let us return to our family. We swear by the gods, we will never speak of what we saw. We will take this secret to our graves." But Zulu's heart was hard as stone. He shook his head slowly, his jaw tight with anger and shame. No one must ever know my disgrace. No one must ever carry this tale to the ears of the world. From today, you live and die here. My mansion will be your prison. The guards, tall and fierce, stepped forward with spears in their hands, their eyes fixed on the trembling carpenter and his son. Bongani wrapped his arms around Jabulani, shielding him like a hen protecting her chick. But Zulu gave no room for pity. He turned away, his robe sweeping the ground, and walked back into the mansion. His voice echoed in the air. No one must know my shame. And so, Bongani and his son were taken inside. They were not killed, but they were not free either. They became prisoners within the mansion, strangers who could never return to their home, their wives, their family, or their village. Though food was given to them, and a place to sleep was prepared, their hearts were heavy with sorrow. Every night, they thought of their loved ones, who would search for them in vain. They wept quietly, their tears soaking their pillows, while the mansion walls kept their cries trapped. The mighty Zulu had bought their silence with chains of fear. Days turned into months. Months slowly stretched into years. Inside Zulu's mansion, life moved like a heavy chain that could not be broken. Every night, Bongani stood by the window of the small room that had become his prison. The window was narrow, covered with strong iron bars, but through it he could see the wide world outside. From far away, the dim lights of villages sparkled like stars on the earth. He often gazed at them until his eyes grew wet with tears. In his heart, he longed for the life he once had, the warmth of his wife's smile, the sound of his other children's voices, the joy of eating together as a family. Freedom was now a memory, and sorrow was his companion. Beside him, Jabulani was no longer the boy who first climbed the mansion roof. The years had changed him. His shoulders grew broad, his voice became deep, and his face matured into that of a man. But instead of joy, pain shaped his youth. He never saw his friends again. He never ran in the fields or joined in the dances of the village. The songs of his childhood were replaced with silence. His laughter, once bright and careless, slowly disappeared. Tears became his new language, and his dreams faded into the darkness of the mansion's walls. Many nights, Bongani would place his hand on his son's shoulder. His voice, though tired, carried hope. "My son," he whispered, "do not let despair swallow you. One day, yes, one day, we will escape this place. The gods will not allow us to die here as prisoners." Jabulani listened, his eyes shining with both pain and faith. He wanted to believe his father's words. He wanted to hold on to the promise of freedom. Deep in his heart, Bongani began to plan. He studied the mansion quietly, the doors, the guards, the secret paths, the times when the gates opened and closed. He watched closely, never showing his intentions. By day, he bent his back to do the tasks given to him, but by night, his mind was awake, weaving ideas like a spider spinning its web. The dream of escape became the fire that kept him alive. One day, after many silent nights of planning, Bongani finally shared his secret idea with Jabulani. His voice was low, almost like a whisper carried by the wind. "My son," he said, leaning close, "I have been thinking for many years. If we gather chicken feathers little by little, I can build us wings, wings like the birds of the sky. We will make flying suits. When the time comes, we will escape from this prison." Jabulani's eyes widened with surprise. For a moment, he thought his father was joking. But when he saw the seriousness in Bongani's eyes, his heart leapt with hope. He nodded eagerly, his voice trembling with excitement. "Yes, father. Yes. Let us do it. Let us be free." From that day, their lives took on a new secret mission. Each time the cooks in the mansion killed chickens for Zulu's feast, father and son quietly collected the feathers. They hid them under their mats, inside cracks in the walls, and beneath wooden boxes. Slowly, carefully, the pile grew. Time passed like a slow river. 7 years went by. 7 long years filled with patience, sorrow, and silent hope. Their hair grew gray with waiting, but their hearts still held the dream of freedom. Finally, the day came when the feathers were enough. Bongani worked in silence, his rough hands shaping the feathers into wings. He used melted wax from old candles, mixed with sticky gum he had secretly prepared from tree sap. Night after night, he stitched and glued, his fingers trembling but determined. At last, 2 flying suits were ready. They looked strange, yet powerful, like the wings of giant birds. Father and son began to practice inside their small room. At first, they stumbled, the feathers scattering everywhere. Their arms ached, their backs burned, and they fell many times. But they did not give up. Slowly, they learned how to flap, how to stretch, how to balance. Sometimes, Jabulani would laugh in joy when he managed to glide a few steps across the floor, and Bongani's tired face would glow with pride. One evening, after practice, Bongani held his son close and whispered with a trembling voice. "Tomorrow morning, we will fly. We will break free from these walls. But listen carefully, my son. You must obey me. Do not fly too high, for the heat of the sun will melt the gum that holds the feathers together. And do not fly too low, for the rivers below are deep and wild. Their waves will drag you down and swallow you." Jabulani nodded firmly, though his heart pounded fast in his chest. His face showed both excitement and fear. He imagined the sky opening its arms to him, and he imagined freedom calling his name. That night, father and son could not sleep. They lay awake in the darkness, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the dawn. At dawn, when the sky was still painted with soft gray and the mansion was wrapped in silence, Bongani and Jabulani crept out of their small room. The guards were still half asleep, and the household had not yet woken. Carefully, step by step, they climbed to the top of the great mansion. The roof was wide and steep, and from there, they could see the glittering rivers below and the endless forest stretching far into the horizon. The cool morning breeze brushed against their faces, carrying with it the sweet smell of freedom. Their hearts beat wildly, as if drums of war were pounding in their chests. Bongani turned to his son. His eyes were wet, but his voice was steady. "Are you ready, my son?" Jabulani smiled faintly, though his hands trembled. "Yes, father. I am ready." Together, they strapped on the wings they had built with 7 years of patience, sorrow, and hope. Bongani took a deep breath. He whispered a short prayer to the gods, then nodded at Jabulani. "Now," he said. They spread their wings wide and leapt into the air. For a moment, there was silence, then, to their amazement, the wind caught their feathers. Their bodies lifted, and they began to soar like eagles. The air rushed past their faces, cool and sweet. The rivers sparkled below them, the forest stretched endlessly, and the hilltop mansion shrank behind them. It felt like a dream. Bongani's heart was bursting with joy. He spread his wings wider, laughing and shouting in triumph. "We are free. Free at last. After all these years, we are free." Jabulani's eyes shone with wonder. The world below looked so small, so far away. His chest swelled with pride. "We are flying, father. We are truly flying." But as they glided through the morning sky, excitement overtook the young man. His father's warning, "Do not fly too high," slipped from his mind. His wings felt strong, his body felt light, and the pull of the heavens tempted him. Without thinking, Jabulani tilted his wings and began to rise higher, higher, and even higher. He wanted to touch the sky. He wanted to feel the warmth of the sun on his face. Bongani, carried by the wind, suddenly looked to his side, and his son was gone. Fear seized his chest. His eyes darted in every direction. "Jabulani! Jabulani, where are you?" The sky around him was wide and empty. His voice echoed against the wind, desperate and trembling. Panic gripped him as he scanned the heavens, his heart pounding like a drum of doom. Bongani tried to turn back, flapping his heavy wings with all his strength, but the wind was stronger than him. It pushed him forward like a leaf caught in a storm. His eyes stung with tears, his chest burned with fear, yet he could not stop himself. At last, the wind dropped him on dry land near the wide riverbank. His knees hit the ground, and he tore off the broken wings. Gasping for breath, he stumbled to his feet. Not far away, a group of fishermen were preparing their nets. Bongani ran to them, his face pale, his voice shaking. "Please, please, help me," he cried, clutching his chest. "My son, my only son. He was with me, but the river swallowed him. Help me find him." The fishermen, seeing his pain, quickly pushed their canoe into the water. Bongani jumped in with them. Together, they paddled hard, their oars cutting the river with splashes. The air was tense, the only sound was the steady beat of the paddles. As they reached the middle of the river, Bongani's eyes widened. Floating on the surface were feathers, white and brown, drifting gently on the waves. His heart stopped. He knew what it meant. Moments later, one of the fishermen pointed with trembling fingers. "There. Look." Bongani turned, and there he saw the body of his son, Jabulani, lying face down in the water. The current rocked him gently, as if mocking the years of hope they had shared. "No!" Bongani screamed, his voice echoing across the river. He plunged his hands into the water as the fishermen pulled Jabulani into the canoe. They laid him down gently, his lifeless face pale under the morning sun. His once bright eyes were closed forever. His feathers, wet and broken, clung weakly to his arms. Bongani collapsed beside him, shaking violently. He grabbed his son's cold hands and pressed them to his face. "My son! My son," he wailed. "Why didn't you listen to me? Why did you fly too high?" His cries pierced the air, louder than the call of any bird, heavier than the waves of the river. The fishermen bowed their heads in silence, their hearts heavy with sorrow. When they reached the shore, they dug a grave by the riverside. Bongani refused to let go of his son, but at last, with trembling hands, he placed Jabulani into the earth. They covered him with sand, and the wind carried the sound of Bongani's cries across the hills. He sat by the grave, his clothes torn, his eyes swollen, his voice broken. He wept until no more tears would come, until his strength left him. His heart was shattered into pieces that could never be made whole again. Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe to this channel for more interesting stories, like, share and drop your comment below.